Hello and welcome to another episode of the Despawn Podcast, the podcast where we talk to fans about their fandoms. Today we got a special one. It's one that's a little bit close to my heart. It's a series I love, but we thought we'd bring in an expert, quote unquote. So we have got today what I like to call the Spartan of shared screens. Basically, the head clicker himself. You might know him as, well, his friends and family know him as Chris, but we know him as Mr. RumblePack92. How you doing,
Hello,
sir?
hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that. I love that I've just kind of become the Halo guy because I screamed enough about it on Twitter.
Yeah, that's generally
And
how
and,
this.
and that's and that's exactly how it came about. Where I was just like, wow, Halo Infinite looks really good, and I said that for like 6 months, and now everyone's like, hey, we're gonna talk about Halo on this podcast. You want to come on? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, want me to play Halo? You want me to talk Halo? You want me to just stand next
I'm
to
here,
Halo?
baby. I'm here
Uh,
for it. I got it. You need me to stand next to it? I just hold on, right here on my desk. Let's do it,
Look at
baby.
it! Look at him,
Let's do it, baby.
the 117 himself.
The
So, I
one
mean,
and the
obviously,
one and
I
only.
guess the oh, look at him go! That
Okay.
thing. I am,
I'm
yeah,
ready.
I am in awe of that thing. I want that in my life.
This thing is cool.
It's so cool.
This
Uh,
thing is cool. It's motor powered and it hurts a little bit when you get shot with it. I
yeah,
found out.
I mean, it's the way you learn, right? It's how you teach
Mhm.
someone. The wonderful world of Halo. I mean, so I guess the first thing to jump in is for you personally, like, how did you first discover Halo? What was the first like memory you have of playing the game and finding out that story and stuff?
So this is a fun story that I actually really love talking about. Which is I've actually been and it's hard not to bring up both of them because the history of Halo is also kind of the history of the Xbox. I mean, Halo was a day one launch title for the console, and so I've actually been a day one fan. Um, my parents and I went to go grab an Xbox on launch day back when it came out. My dad is actually a pretty big gamer himself, and that was the console to have at the time. He's always been the kind of been is like, look, the console that we're gonna have is gonna be like the most powerful one out on the market. Like that's always kind of what he went for. So we went and traded in our Dreamcast to go pick up an Xbox,
R.I.P.
and it's unappreciated, ahead of its time. Dreamcast was amazing. We love you. Shenmue forever. Um, and but I mean, unfortunately, it's like my mom and I went and picked it up, and I had it for the one day, and then we shipped it out to my father, who was overseas because it was, he's in the military, and it was 2001. Um, to kind of just gloss over all of that. Um, and so he came back a couple months later, and he was like, "Hey, you have to check this game out." It's like one of the first things he said when he got home was like, "You have to see this game." And he loaded up the second level of Halo, which is called Halo. After your escape pod crashes on the ring, and it just kind of opens up, and you can see all that. And then I was instantly hooked. It was I'd never seen anything like it before. I mean, because there weren't any games like it at the time. Um, First person shooters weren't, big on consoles yet. Halo was kind of the first one to really do that outside of like GoldenEye and maybe Perfect Dark on the N64, but that was pre dual stick controls. That was a game changer.
I was going to say because that
Uh
was like the huge thing back in the day was like that Halo brought like modern FPSs to console. So
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. FPS as we know them really is because of Halo.
Mhm.
The whole two gun mechanic, the way dual sticks work. Halo 2 even created matchmaking, which is not something that a lot of people don't know about, which is really really fascinating. But yeah, I've been on since day one. I've always loved it. It's been a really, really cool, just constant in my life, and yeah, hard not to love it when the Xbox is the only console you have as a tween, and but yeah, it's great. I love it. I'm all about it.
Yeah, I was going to say because you mentioned that obviously you got dumped in the second level, which is obviously the opening level where everything kind of expands. So
Mhm.
I guess like that is I think it's a staple. It feels like a staple of the Halo series. It always is like that tight corridor, first level, running through a ship, and then all of a sudden like this big expansive world opens up in front of you. Like how was that
Yeah,
feeling when that first happened for you? Like how much of a game changer was that when it came to like what video games were?
that was that that's one of those games I think where every now and then you see like that trend on Twitter going around of like, what are games that made you a gamer kind
Mhm.
of thing. And I hate calling myself a gamer. It's weird. Um, but Halo is one of those games because of that moment when I played it, where that was one of those things. It's one of the games when one of those moments that turned it from this is a cool hobby to wow, this is something that I really enjoy and appreciate it, like almost as like as an art form, just kind of more than somebody that just wants to go in and play a video game for a little while. You know what I mean? It just kind of took it to the next level, and yeah, that was the sort of thing where I was like, I've never seen a video game that's this big before. I just remember being stricken at how large and open everything looked at the time. And I mean, you get to that point where in that mission where you have to go rescue other Marines who crashed in their pods. And I was going with my dad because again, I'm like 9, 10 years old, I think, when that came out at the
Yeah.
time. And so uh there's a point where you get to choose like what order you tackle that in. And I remember my dad being there, and I was asking, I was like, "Where do I go now?" And he goes, "No, you pick. Like you just get to
Yeah.
go choose." And I went, "What do you mean? Like, where am I supposed to go?" He's like, "No, no, no. You can pick which ones you want to do." And that at the of the time of having that much control over what I was doing in a video game was a fairly new concept. Open world wasn't super much of a thing at the time back then either. Now, granted, I did just say that we'd had a Dreamcast and played Shenmue, which I think one of the original open world games as we know them today.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean that was still a whole different thing. Other games were like Shenmue, and so to see it in like a first person shooter, that was just outstanding. And I mean, the music is kicking in, and I mean the combat's real tight, and man, that pistol is a lot of fun, and yeah, that was there's nothing quite else like it to see something just as large as that, and then being told, okay, now you go have fun,
Yeah.
like go figure it out,
And
and yeah, that's just so cool.
And I think that what kind of makes Halo such an iconic series is it is kind of, and I think it's described as it itself. It is a sandbox, which you are basically
Hmm.
say you have a mission. Here are the tools to do that mission. Crack on and get on with it. Do it however you want. And I think for me, well, I'll talk for me personally. Like I find that as being the most exciting thing. When you've come from like a world of video games where it is very it's a world of platformers and RPGs and things like that. And then you're stuck into a world where it's like, here's a gun, go shoot the bad guys, but decide how you want to do it and just play with the toys that you're given. And I think that's what kind of made it exciting for me. So I guess like just to jump back to the beginning, shall we say? How would you describe the Halo series to one of the like three people that doesn't know about it?
All right, to all three of you, I would say Halo is a really cool guy who kills aliens and isn't afraid of anything. No, uh, Halo is a sci-fi first-person shooter. Um, I honestly, really, it's just kind of about going cool places and shooting aliens.
Hmm.
Um, which I feel like if you're gonna play a first-person shooter, especially a sci-fi one, like that's kind of all you need, right?
Yeah,
It's
I'd
like,
say
hey,
so.
looks cool is fun, but I think it's also just one of the tightest like multiplayer experiences that you'll ever play on the internet in general, and has like a very very solid single player campaign too. There's a little something for everybody, I think.
I'd agree with that. I think yeah, the combat is really good. We mentioned it briefly, like the sandbox environment that you just get to run around in is
That was
so
it.
much fun. But yeah, like there's so many levels to Halo. I think that if you are just after a base level, really solid FPS that you can play on consoles and now on PC again, or you want to dive in and get some really deep story, it is fantastic for that. And as you mentioned there, the multiplayer is like second to none. I think bringing that arena shooter to consoles
Mhm.
with like the modern FPS controls was something that yeah I don't think people realized that they missed until we got it, and then yeah I can't imagine a world without it now.
It's been cool to see the reception to it because I think that was a big question mark going into Halo Infinite's
Hmm.
uh, multiplayer was like, hey, like the face of modern shooters has really changed, since 2001.
Yeah,
Um, like are people still interested in something like this? And I think they found a really cool way to bring that classic arena shooter vibe while also keeping it like fresh and new and modern and but battle royales have kind of taken over the shooter market lately, and
Mhm.
it's been cool to see something that's not a battle royale come in and still dominate as much as it has. Um and I think that's also kind of in no small part to Call of Duty and Battlefield's receptions being a little lukewarm,
Mhm.
which means that there's just kind of an open space
There
in
is.
the market right now, and Halo Infinite kind of shadow dropping when it did, I think was the perfect thing that it was exactly what it needed
Yeah.
to kind of get out in front of as many faces as possible, and you have a whole new generation of people who haven't played a Halo game because Halo 5, it just it campaign wise, multiplayer in Halo 5 is awesome, and
Mhm.
and and I'm a huge fan, especially like of the esports side of it. But I mean, like 5 people played it, you know.
Yeah.
That's
I
like
was one of
this
them.
is
It's fine.
did and so this is a essentially like a fresh start for it, and it's been really really cool to see new people coming in and playing it and experiencing that for the first time.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I think it is fantastic to see like new people jumping on board, old people coming back to the series as well.
Hmm.
Seeing a lot of people talking about how good it feels to get back into a modern Halo again. Well, like you said, I don't think it was terrible at Halo 5. I just think there was a lot of missed opportunities and some questionable choices, which I'm sure we'll get into when we start talking story and stuff. But I think now this feels like a classic, like call back to like classic Halo,
Hmm.
with all those like modern like elements that they've brought to it, which I think just makes it
Yeah,
perfect
you get
package right now.
your left trigger on ADS, you get your slide and clamber and all that stuff. But I mean, none of it. If I'd said any of those words to a Halo fan like 4 years ago, they'd have been like, "That's going to be terrible. Why is Halo trying to copy Call of Duty and all that stuff?" But I think they managed to thread the needle and still make it feel. It feels like you're playing Halo 2,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's very much not that.
you know, I think it captures the feeling of Halo 2, but still having like the modern shooter elements. It's been a lot faster paced,
Hmm.
a lot quicker TTK and stuff like that, which just makes it a
Yeah.
bit more fun to play. So I mean, I guess like just jump into some of the story before we start talking multiplayer properly. Like we talked about it briefly. Like Halo's story on the surface is quite, like you say, quite simple. It is big man in suit shoots aliens for fun.
Mhm.
But like, would you agree? Like, there is a lot more to the story if you dig into it.
Absolutely. And I think the best way to kind of talk about it is honestly it's similar to Star Wars.
Right.
To where you have your main stuff like the movies, which people are familiar with. Everyone
Mm.
knows Star Wars. I am your father. All that.
That's not true.
And
That's impossible.
it's impossible. Um, but outside of the movies, you have like some of the TV shows. There's The Mandalorian. You've got your offshoots, Rogue One, and Solo. Um, but even outside of that, you have like books, comic books, video games, and the expanded universe.
Yeah.
And that's stuff most people are not as familiar with.
Hmm.
But there's a lot going on in the Star Wars expanded universe, right? And you get a lot more context for things that happen in the movies, expansion on characters that are maybe just mentioned or shown, that sort of thing. There's a lot of meat there. Halo's exactly the same way. You have your games and there's story there and it's I don't I'd say simple, not in a bad way. I think it kind of needs to be simple. It's like, hey, your big green suit, go shoot aliens. Aliens are bad guys, and you go, cool. I don't think a video game necessarily needs to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just hey, go stop bad guys, and you go cool, and then you make really cool set pieces around that, and that's
Hmm.
awesome. Um, but there is so much more going on in the world of Halo, and there's novels and comic books and all these other and movies and soon a TV show on Paramount Plus.
Yep.
And there's a lot going on. Child soldiers that were kidnapped and cloned, so their parents didn't know that they were kidnapped and trained from birth and physically augmented and all this stuff, and it's like some really fucked up stuff
Yeah.
going on in Halo, and really really fascinating things, and so I think if somebody wanted to get into it and learn more about everyone's favorite Master Chief, start with the Fall of Reach book, man.
Hmm.
That's kind of it launched with the game. That's kind of where it all starts, and just gives you a little more context to the character himself. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of meat underneath those bones, and it's all very very good. I've read a lot of the Halo novels.
Awesome, because I wanted to jump into some of the meat on those bones. Because again, minor spoilers for some of the story elements. We'll talk about like the basic premises and stuff, but we won't spoil like end game stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, just from my experience, I feel like the main crux of the Halo, like the deep story, is that relationship between Master Chief and Cortana.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of been the driving force for a lot of the series. Would you agree with that? Would you say anything differently? What would you say is like the main driving force for the story?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, especially in the games. It's Chief and Cortana, and I think 343 even themselves said it in one of the more recent like Halo Infinite campaign
Yeah.
videos, where they were like, "Hey, this is the center of the story is Chief and Cortana," and I mean that's especially prevalent in games like Halo 3 and Halo 4.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. I think that I mean, there, he's the Luke Skywalker of the series. I mean, he's why you play it. He's why you watch it.
No, I'd agree. And yeah, it's just it feels good, like having that emotional arc to like kind of anchor the story while all the
Yeah.
insane stuff happens around it. And I mean, like just to get into the story, obviously we know, like obviously Master Chief is the big brooding dude in a suit fighting these aliens. What I like about the series is as well, like you say, we've talked about it a couple of times, that it's quite like on the low level it is dude fighting aliens, but there is like this kind of like civil war that's happening, a religious war, and all that kind of stuff. That,
Hmm.
but for the time, not a lot of games went into that much detail on like just for a shooter. And I commend like Microsoft and Bungie at the time for making such an in-depth world. And I think we kind of know now Bungie are well known for that. They have
Yeah,
become synonymous
yeah.
with it.
Yeah, and I do think it is important to kind of look back at 2001 and be like, yeah, shooters didn't really have super complicated stories, and I mean, not that Combat Evolved has like a super complicated story or anything, but there's a lot of backstory there, to whereas like outside of Halo, you had Doom,
Yeah.
that kind of had stories going on out, like in addition to what you were playing in the game, and I mean, yeah, uh, just to kind of put that all in perspective, I mean, both Halo and The Fall of Reach, which was kind of the companion novel to the game, launched at the same time, which I have read and is very good. Um, and in The Fall of Reach, I mean, you learn that the Spartans are literally like brainwashed child soldiers,
Hmm.
who just went through hell and literally don't know anything but else but combat, who were initially raised to fight human insurrectionists until the alien covenant arrived,
Yeah.
and then yeah, there's this whole like religious war aspect going on with the aliens, the Covenant, as well, and that's before you even get into the plot twist of the Flood in the first game too, and so yeah, that was, I think, the moment where Halo's story really got me, was suddenly there's this weird survival horror level in this alien shooting game,
Yeah.
and just this complete plot twist, complete game changer that, I mean, wasn't in any of the marketing. It wasn't anything else. It was this completely brand new thing, and like you find out the dark secrets behind why the Halos exist, and
Hmm.
and all this stuff, and suddenly, yeah, there's so much more to this little alien shooter than everyone thought.
Yeah, no, again, I'd agree with that. And I mean, you've talked on it briefly, like the wider, like expanded universe and stuff. Like, how much of that
Mhm.
have you delved into?
So, um, there's a lot of Halo novels, which I think is kind of what forms the bulk of the Halo expanded universe, is the novels. And I've read a lot of them. I haven't read all of them. Most of the ones that I read were, you've got the original like trilogy by Eric Nyland, which was Fall of Reach, The Flood, and First Strike,
Yeah.
which deals with before, during, and immediately after Combat Evolved. Um, I've read the Kilo 5 trilogy, which takes place, I want to say, post Halo 3, pre Halo 4. Um, I tried reading the first of like the Forerunner trilogy, and that just kind of didn't do it for me, and so I stopped reading that one. Um, because it's you want to talk about complicated story and stuff. Man, there's a whole lot of story going on with the Forerunners and things.
Yeah.
Um, to the point where I'm like, this no, I'm good. I'm not as into all the Forerunner stuff. Um, I've also kind of read a couple of other things here and there. I've read a lot of novels. I guess is how far my
Okay.
Xfinity goes. I played the twin stick shooter on iPhone when it finally came to
Oh,
mobile.
Was it Spartan Assault?
Spartan Assault,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I played the first Halo Wars game.
Mhm.
I've watched the Forward Unto Dawn movie a good number of times
Yeah.
because it's for a small budget little production that was originally made for YouTube. It's very good.
Yeah, for a limited run web series, they put a lot of effort into that, and I think it
Mhm.
really shows. And I guess, like, obviously, because you've covered quite a bit there. Do you think all that stuff is kind of needed to understand the backstory, or is it like kind of fun, superfluous extras?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
To where it's not needed to enjoy the original trilogy, Halos 1, 2, and 3. When 343 initially took over, they were like, "Hey, we're gonna start embracing some of this expanded universe stuff." Which, as a fan, I was like, "Cool." I think there's a lot of story there that's kind of missed in context and that sort of thing. And I think, and you definitely see a lot more of that just in like Chief and Cortana's relationship in that game in Halo 4. That's such a big thing. I mean, Spartan. John 117 talks a lot more in Halo 4 than he does in the other games, and that
Yeah.
surprised a lot of people. And the nerds like me had to come out and be like, "No, he talks all the time. It's just the video games where he's more silent." Um, but at that point though in Halo 4, they definitely started bringing a lot of expanded universe stuff into where like, here's the didact and all these other things, and then did not explain what any of that was.
No.
So it's like if you didn't read any of those novels, you had no idea what the hell was happening.
Yeah, it was a bit
And
too much fan service, and not enough for the layman like myself who'd missed
Yeah,
out everything.
it starts out with this whole cutscene of like Oni interrogating Catherine Halsey about like the conscription of child soldiers into the Spartan program. And if you didn't already know that, because they don't mention that in the first three games at
Yeah,
all, you're probably like, what the hell are they talking about?
yeah,
And so it was very cool for myself to see it, but I was like, oh my God, they're finally acknowledging it. But then yeah, they just kind of never touch on it again. And yeah, I think they swung a little too hard the other direction, and so I'm hoping with Infinite maybe we find like a middle ground. But
yeah,
I think overall, you could go watch a little like 15-20 minute YouTube video, and I think it'll about cover everything you need to know
yeah,
for the games. I think the majority of it is pretty superfluous though. It's just kind of fun. It's like, hey, if you like this universe, there's more stuff to explore.
yeah. And I mean, I guess just going into that, like, obviously you mentioned Halsey a couple of times, and I think again we mentioned obviously Cortana, Master Chief. That's like the main emotional crux. But do you
Mhm.
think like Halsey plays into that as well a fair bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. To the point where when you start the Fall of Reach novel, which is kind of like the beginning of the Halo universe,
Hmm.
it's I mean, it starts with Halsey. For first chapter is her going to whatever planet that John's from, and like her first interaction with him. Um, as a like a 9-year-old child, it's really
Yeah.
fascinating. Um, yeah, I mean, Halsey literally created Cortana. She's like this super advanced AI made with like a flash clone of Halsey's brain. You know, Halsey also was kind of like led the Spartan 2 program, and so is responsible for the Master Chief and Blue Team and the rest of his squad. And yeah, I think she's kind of the driving force behind how we get to Halo as we know it today. And it was cool seeing her. I think for the first time in a video game in Reach, I think is the first time we see her in a game. And then yeah, she's kind of all over 4 and 5, which is really rad. I think she's one of the more interesting characters in the universe for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. I'd agree with that. I think obviously she's got positive motives, but she does it in a really negative way. And I
Yeah,
think that
this
kind of has
really
that.
cool, like morally gray kind of thing,
Hmm.
like for the greater good. Like where I think she acknowledges, she's like, yeah, I did some fucked up shit. You wouldn't be here without it though. Like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I mean, I guess just going into that, like, jumping from the story elements, like we talk about some of the multiplayer stuff
Yeah.
briefly. Like, go into a bit of like your history with the multiplayer stuff. Like, obviously, it's been there since the beginning. Well, not
Hey,
from the
what,
beginning.
baby?
Was it in Halo One? Well, I think co-op was, but do you,
Halo 1 had co-op and you had like local multiplayer, but I mean Halo 1 was pre Xbox Live.
yeah,
So
and I think
it just wasn't enabled on console. I think technically Master Chief Collection was the first time you could play uh Combat Evolved online on a console.
yeah, and again, just talking into like we talked about. Obviously, it was the launch title for the first Xbox. And, like Xbox Live launched with Halo 2. How do you like? It feels like it's very integral to like Microsoft and Xbox as a series. How would you like go into describing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, just as far as like my personal history with it, I mean, just kind of again, the history of Xbox is also the history of Halo. You can't have one without the other, really. Um, yeah, Halo 2 was a massive driving force for Xbox Live. Although I think there is still something to be mentioned about Combat Evolved, which was my introduction to the LAN party. You
Yep.
know, that was the first time I'd ever. Actually, now that I think about it, I think the only LAN parties I've ever been to were Halo ones. Um, but it was that was sort of like the multiplayer game to have, and suddenly it was like nobody I knew had an Xbox Two. A few months later, everyone I knew had at least knew somebody that had an Xbox because they had to play Halo.
Yeah.
And they're talking about what a cool multiplayer game this was. But if you want to get into the online history, so again, my father played games, and he was actually a beta tester for Xbox Live.
Nice.
Um, I used to have his hat that said like Xbox Live beta tester and stuff. I wonder if I can still find it. I'm sure it's buried around here somewhere. Um, and so I mean, Halo 2 dropped, and we were on top of that, as my dad and I were both fans and jumped into it. And what an incredible moment that was, because I think I mentioned it a little earlier before my power went out. That Halo 2 is actually the originator of matchmaking. Like, Bungie created matchmaking as we knew it. Online
Hmm.
games before Halo 2 had server browsers, just like PC games.
Yeah.
Um, and the idea of being able to part up with your friends and then just being matched with other people online, nobody done it before. That didn't exist. And that was I think when the addiction set in, uh, was when it made it so easy to just go online and play against people and not have to coordinate it or wait for like space on a browser to open. But oh no, the server only has 8 people, and it's a big team and we need like 12 or whatever. Uh, and yeah, so I mean, I've kind of been, but again, yeah, personally, I've been on since day one. And there's not an online experience like it still to this day. I think it's a very unique thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think obviously with we touched on how it just like it captured that arena shooter from PCs.
Hmm.
But like you say, it gave you the simplicity of working with a console with matchmaking, being able to just quickly like link up with your friends through Xbox Live. And I think it's kind of what gave Halo its wings a little bit. I think to say how it just kind
Yeah,
of it was that initial just like everything was simple. You just jump on with your friends, have fun, and play, and it was great. And again, like, what is like some of the best memories you have of Halo, like multiplayer, of like jumping in with your mates? What is it that makes it so special, apart from obviously the simplicity of it all?
yeah. I mean, yeah. Apart from the sort of simplicity of it all, I mean, just it's the moment to moment stuff they have that is possible because of the sandbox in the game, which is something that we mentioned
Yeah,
earlier. And just the way that the game is like, here's all of the tools, like you figure it out. Um, just kind of creates like a unique thing even within other arena shooters. To the point where it reminds me a lot of the marketing of the Battlefield series, which is only in Battlefield. You only get these moments in Battlefield, and I think Halo also absolutely creates exactly that. I mean, to the point where, I mean, you're down a flag capture in a CTF match, and it's like you managed to sneak in. Thank you so much, Brett. I got coffee. It's early.
yay!
Um, where you managed to sneak into the enemy base. You're down a flag. There's only a minute and a half left. your buddy drives up in a warthog and you jump in the side and you're screaming and like go 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 and like banshees are flying in and all this stuff and you're screaming like this is like Normandy as you're like just trying to get through all this and it creates for these super unique things to where if you play it on that same map with the same group of people again you'd have a completely different experience than the next game just because the sandbox allows for so much what I like to call like player expression.
Mhm.
Um, which as a big Smash Brothers Melee player, especially in the competitive scene, um, there's kind of this old saying to where it's like if you were to watch like two players play the same character, they'd look different, uh, and you could tell. It's like that's Mango playing this Marth, but you watch another video and you could be like yeah that's Mewtwo King's Marth. Like they're two completely different styles of play, and I think you kind of get that from Halo as well. And so kind of being able to just jump in and just create stories essentially within multiplayer is such a cool thing.
I think
If I
you've
had to pick a favorite,
I'm gonna say that just to
man,
jump
it's
into
hard.
that quickly, I think you've kind of sold it really well there. It is very much a kind of like the sandbox is the main key, I think, here, in so much as like,
Mhm.
here's the tools, go to town. So if you are a sniper, hang back, go to town with that sniper rifle. Or if you just want to get it in close, get that energy sword and just wreck shop. It's
Ah, the
just
sword.
I've had like we'll talk about it in a bit with like the modern with Halo Infinite and things like that. But I
Mhm.
had such a good match with just running around with the sword, and it just feels so good. And I think
Always
that's
my
what
favorite Halo weapon
yeah
every time.
I think that's what makes it like everything just feels good, and it just works, and you're just left with the toys to play with, and you just do what you like. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I mean, again, obviously, you talked about those moments, like how it's just like it is special, it is sandbox, and like how do you feel like the progression has been like throughout the years? Obviously, starting in Halo One with the LAN parties, into
Mhm.
Halo Two with introduction of Xbox Live, and then as it's gone throughout the years and all the introductions they've made, like how have you felt found that progression in the series?
I think it started out really great as far as like one, two, three. All felt like big evolutions and huge improvements from the next. And then I think once you hit Halo Reach, things kind of start getting a little rocky.
All right.
Um, Reach introduced a bunch of stuff to the sandbox that just kind of I personally wasn't as huge of a fan of the concept of armor abilities and loadouts
Yeah.
and a couple of these things and um I, d- I think they had some trouble like implementing kind of these newer things to a game that doesn't necessarily need those kind of additions, and then I think Halo 4 kind of took that a little even further with customizable loadouts and all these other things that very Call of Duty esque. And I love Halo 4, but I do think that was kind of to the detriment of the Halo experience, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of, and then Halo 5 was like, okay, we're going back to even starts. We're getting rid of loadouts, but then they're like, but here's tons of crazy movement mechanics and stuff. Your ground pounds, your dashes, your slides, like clambers, all this stuff, and I mean, you're mobile as hell in that game,
Hmm.
which is cool. I do like that. I think it's definitely a little more lore accurate. Um, but I think then you hit Infinite, and they were like, okay, we're taking the best things of all of that. And kind of distilling it down into one thing, and at this point, I honestly, even just the multiplayer is out, but I have no problem in saying that Infinite is probably I think the strongest multiplayer offering in the entire series.
Yeah, no, I probably agree with you on that one. I think I talked about it initially, where it's like it feels like that combination of everything that has been great about Halo through the years. So that just like solid, you feel like a Spartan running around in a half a ton suit when you're
Mhm.
running around, but then you've got these extra little, like just like the pickups, so things like the grapple and the repulsor and things like that. That just
What an incredible design choice
yeah.
too. That was the repulsor, the grapple hook, even taking like Halo 5's thrusters and
Hmm.
turning that into a map item.
Yeah.
And then giving it limited uses, but I mean your mobility just goes through the roof, and there's all these different ways that you can play around it. Again, I mentioned player expression and just like that sandbox of just like here's the tools, go have fun. So many fun things you could do with those, man. It's a brilliant idea to only include like one or two on a map as well, and be like, hey, you could go get the rocket launcher, or you could have the grapple hook, and just absolutely just brilliant idea. I love it.
Yeah, and again, it's that expression. I find nothing better than using the grapple while I've got a sword to fly through the air, land behind the enemies, and just cut them up.
There's literally no better feeling.
Nothing better.
There's
Yeah,
no better feeling
just
than
landing
grappling
behind.
somebody
Oh, yeah.
and then it's like you've got a hammer and you let the grapple go early because you got that big swing, and then
Hmm.
another guy comes around the corner and you double kill them with one swing, and your momentum carries because you just grappled this dude that you kill, and you go flying into the next room. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I
It is
love it.
so good. It is so good. And again, like, what are your feelings now going into the future? Like, obviously, we're 20 years now down the line with Halo and Xbox. Infinite's about to drop in just over a week's time for the campaign. Obviously, multiplayer is here now. How are you feeling about the series as a whole at the moment in its current state?
I've said it on my own content a couple times, but I mean, if Infinite sticks to campaign, like if the campaign sticks to landing, it'll be the best Halo in the entire series.
Mhm.
Like I feel fully as somebody that's been since day one. Like you can't say it's like, oh well, you haven't played any other games. I've played all of them.
Mhm.
Like, I've been here. And so yeah, I feel fully confident saying that. Yeah, this could potentially be the best one. To the point where it's like, hey, I mean, I know that they're having some issues with like progression and a couple other little nitpicks, but I mean, it's like they're doing kind of the Destiny thing where like, hey, we want this game to stick around for a really really long time. And so I think they have time to deal with that and adjust with that. I'd rather the gameplay be good first, and then that stuff can come later. And I think they've really really nailed the gameplay to the point where if they decided to make another game, I don't know what they do to improve it at this point.
Yeah. Better progression. That's all I'd say. But
Yeah.
no, like, so one of the things I read with an interview with Phil Spencer where he said he wants Halo to be a 30-year series. Like,
Mhm.
do you think it's got the legs to do that now? Like, or do you think that this is the culmination?
30 years is a long time.
Hmm. Yeah.
30 years is a really, really long time. I mean, it's already been around 20.
Yep.
You know, what's another 10?
Exactly.
Um, yeah, as long as I keep it pretty, I guess.
Yeah.
Gameplay's already there.
Gameplay is there. Yeah, true. And I mean, obviously, we talk about the progression. I think it is the kind of white elephant in the room. Like, how do you feel about that at the moment? What improvements do you think could be made?
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
Like I'll just straight up say progression in this game is bad. And part of the frustrated part of that is that they had a similar problem with the Master Chief Collection, and they fixed it.
Hmm.
And the fact that it doesn't use a system that comes from the same company in the same game is wild to me. Um, and I think they've already started making some steps in the right direction where they put out like a small fix in week one, and I know we're going to the holiday, so it'll probably be a little while before we see any major overhauls to it. And I think right now it's fine, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, I mean it's bad. To the point where when it launched, the only way that you could gain XP and progress your battle pass or whatever was by completing challenges. And so like if you know went into a base, you wiped out their entire team, capped their flag, and then ran it back at the end of the game. If you because you didn't get 5 needler kills, you got no XP whatsoever.
Hmm.
Um, they've kind of adjusted it a little bit now to where it's still challenge based, but you always have at least one challenge that's just like complete a game, and so you're still getting at least something. And then they eased up on the specificity of some of the weeklies as well. You no longer have to get 12 shotgun kills while Mercury's in retrograde or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and now you can just be like, oh, capture 3 flags. Like there you go. Um, Although there was like one, they always have like a capstone challenge as like the final weekly challenge, and recently that was get 5 killing sprees in Fiesta, and
Yep.
I did it, and I never want to play Fiesta again.
Yep.
Fuck that challenge,
Yeah,
man.
I had the similar I had the same challenge as well. And again, we were talking about how the sword is the best weapon in the game. That really helps for your killing sprees.
Grapple sword, get
Hmm.
grapple hook and a sword,
Yeah,
and that's what did it for me.
yeah.
Um,
I was a bit
uh,
naughty. There's a bit, and we'll talk about the maps and stuff because I want to get into like the design aspect of Halo
mhm,
as well. But there's a specific level in Infinite, the Bazaar,
yeah,
and far right hand side, depending on where, far left, depending on where you spawn, there's like a little vent. Get in that,
yeah.
drop down on someone, kill them, swing back round, just wait.
Yeah, it drops down to where the shotgun spawns.
Feels so
Uh,
dirty, but it works.
that's why I got most of my sprees too. Was just the grapple hook and the sword because everyone hangs out on those higher spots
Hmm.
like across from mid, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I just grapple hook, get a double kill, drop back down, wait for somebody to pop up, jump up, grapple kill whoever's up there. Watch, rinse, repeat until I did it 5 times. It was awful.
Yeah, it felt
Uh,
bad. And again, I guess that's talking about the progression. I mean, obviously, this is a big departure for Halo, with it being the first
mhm.
free to play multiplayer game. So obviously, everything is kind of gearing towards the battle pass system. And I mean, I don't know about yourself, but me personally, the thing that I dislike the most is like you mentioned it as well briefly. Is you can play the best match of your career, and you will get 50 XP
Yeah,
because it's just your
whi-
daily challenge.
which is sad. I was playing Infinite last night, and a buddy of mine a friend of mine was like, "Didn't they say they were fixing it? Like I thought they were gonna make it better." I was like, "No, no, no. That's already gone out. Like that's what the current system is, was the fix. It was worse."
Yeah.
And I know that they said there's more coming. This was just like a little band-aid for now until I think probably until the holidays are done. Um, I mean, I don't personally have a problem with the whole battle pass system. I think that's the trade-off for being, free to play, and I'm fine with that if it means it's easier to it's more accessible.
Hmm.
I'd rather have more players than more armor sets personally.
True.
Maybe I'm an old head though, because I know some people have stopped playing because they can't dress up their Spartan exactly the way they want to, and I was like, "What are you talking about? It plays beautifully, like
But I can't have the
whatever."
right shade of lightish red.
Yeah, exactly. Lightest red, baby. Um, and I mean, yeah, it's weird that the ranking system is performance based. Uh, the some of the stuff you earn in the game is performance based, but the actual battle pass now performance based.
No.
Which makes no sense because Master Chief Collection has battle passes, performance based. It's like you have a
Yeah.
set amount of XP that you get per match, and then you get additional XP based on the medals that you earned.
Yeah.
Things like double kills and headshots, all of that stuff. And you get a little extra for getting those in a game. And it's so weird that Infinite doesn't use their own system.
Yeah.
It's the only thing really where I'd be like, yeah, they're definitely trying to, I mean, make it probably as grindy as possible and keep people coming back. But I think there's a balance that battle passes need to hit, between that sort of grindy and just giving things out. I honestly I think Fortnite is one of the best systems that does it, to where it gives you just enough to keep going, to keep going through your challenges and those sorts of things. And sometimes another XP boost and challenge swap isn't exactly what I want to be running right now, and it's going to take me at least 15 games just to get to the next tier for one new shoulder piece. It's the left one. It's not even the right one. It's one shoulder,
Yeah.
and so I think it needs some work.
Oh, 100%. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, just to kind of obviously touch on it, we touched on it, and we keep touching on things. Let's go right into this one. Design of Halo. Again, I talk about it as like it feels like just an old school arena shooter with just those modern elements that make it just shine. What would you say about the design of Halo? Again, from going from the campaign to multiplayer and everything between. Like, how do you feel about the design of Halo?
uh, for Infinite specifically, or the
Just in
entire
general, the
series.
series in general. Like, how do you think
Just
it's
in
gone?
general. Oh man. I think it's this really really cool combination of a lot of things that other games did really really well, and then they kind of distilled all of it down into this one really cool thing. I mean, campaign has always had that. It's linear A to B, but it's like here you hear all the tools and you kind of figure it out and do all that, and so it's like it is a linear game that still gives you that sort of freedom of expression to get there how you want to. And from the sound of it, Infinite is definitely going to be taking that to an even further degree with this semi-open world thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not out yet, so I can't necessarily comment on that. But yeah, I mean, you combine that with just these really, really tightly designed levels. Like whenever I think Halo's campaign, I always think of like the opening level of Halo 3, the jungle mission, which is very, very linear, but there's also like these little side paths and stuff to where like there's one point where you fight a bunch of brutes and grunts, and you can see like this crashed pelican kind of off to the side. If you go over there, there's a bunch of weapons that there's battle rifles and there's a sniper rifle over there too. And then when you go into the next area, you start out looking down on this cliff into this big open area. And if you grab that sniper rifle, suddenly you can approach this whole encounter way differently than you would have if you just charged in with like the whatever brute weapon that you'd picked up from the last fight. And so that's always really really cool to see a first person shooter that kind of rewards you for poking around and digging and exploring a little bit. Um, and I mean, multiplayer, just about dead on. Like you've mentioned before, I mean, it's kind of the console arena shooter, and Infinite has definitely like kind of planted its flag in the ground in the same way in a market full of Twitch very fast shooters. No. Uh, you've got your Battlefields, your Call of Duties, your Valorants, your CS:GOs, all of which have extremely extremely low TTKs. I mean, you see a dude, you shoot him, they're dead. And whereas Halo Infinite has a much faster TTK, I think, than the rest of its own series. But I mean, somebody shoots at you, you still have the opportunity to if the idea is that if you're a better player, you can still turn around and kind of reverse it on them. And I think there's a medal in the game called Reversal too, to where if you kill somebody that shot at you first,
Hmm.
um, and there's yeah, I think we said it a bunch of times. It's a really really unique thing, but I think the strength of an arena shooter lies on the design of its weapons and its maps. And damn, does Halo Infinite have some good weapons and maps, man?
Oh, we I gotta say we've talked about the sword many a time, the grav hammer as well. I think I can't get away with not saying the word spanker. I've got to say it. It has to be
I
said.
had never heard the rocket launcher called a spanker
No.
until this game.
And I'm so happy it is. But yeah, I like to say, what are your favorite weapons? If I'm not going to make you do like a top 10 list, but like obviously apart from the ones we've already mentioned, what are the ones that stand out to you the most that are
Yeah,
uniquely
absolutely.
Halo?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's cool about Infinite is I think it's the first time in the series where the vast like majority of the sandbox in this game feels really really viable.
Hmm.
There almost any gun you can pick up and probably do some damage with. There's a couple exceptions. Plasma pistol is very bad in this
Yep.
game.
Oh, it's terrible.
uh Plasma pistol's real bad, and that weird blue Covenant carbine thing, that thing's awful.
Yeah.
Outside of that though, some of my favorites are, I mean, I'll always love the battle rifle.
Yeah.
And man, they made it feel good in this game. So I watched this video. They actually like the rate of fire matches exactly Halo 3. So if you're an old Halo 3 head like myself, then
Hmm.
yeah, of course it's gonna feel right. It's three to body, one to the head.
Yep. Feels so
Um
good. Feels so good.
and the audio design on it, ooh, it just sounds mean. It just sounds good to fire. It's a satisfying gun to use,
Yep.
even if it's just like your basic three shot. But the battle rifle's a classic
It
Halo weapon.
makes
I mean,
it makes ranked so fun to play. Just running around
I
with
don't
battle
usually play
rifles.
ranked in any sort of video game, and I'm all about it
Hmm.
here. And because I live for BR starts, man, I got to do it. Um, Favorite guns. I really like the new pistol, the Sidekick.
Yeah.
It feels tight. Some people don't like having Bloom and Halo, and I agree to an extent. But I think again, they've kind of threaded the needle here in Infinite, and so having a little bit on that pistol makes it so you can't just blah 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 blah. You gotta watch it a little bit. There's a,
Yeah.
there's a strategy to using it. It's not an instant kill weapon like the Magnum is in Combat Evolved.
No,
Um,
but it feels like one of the best pistols since Combat Evolved for me. Like
yeah,
I could go an entire match just using the pistol and still feel like it's a viable choice.
yeah. You never feel like you're at a disadvantage.
Mhm.
As far as like new weapons, I love the Mangler, that new brute pistol. Like that big revolver thing with the blades on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing is nasty. Especially up close. It's got a lot of bullet drops, so you can tell like it's very much designed to be an up close weapon. If
Yeah.
you hit them with one bullet and melee them, they're dead. That thing is gross. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, I say new weapons. A lot of people don't like the new shotgun, like the pump action one,
Mhm.
because it's not a one hit kill up close anymore. But I don't know. I like it. I think they managed to make it fit well in the sandbox. And it's a lot of fun. I also like that new Forerunner one, the Heat Wave, where you can bounce the
Oh
bullets
yeah.
around. I think that's really cool. Um, What other guns are there in the game? There's a lot of them.
I've got one word, and it's skewer.
Skewer, baby! Yeah, man, that thing is
It's
mean.
just it's rude, is what it is. You hit someone with that, no scope somebody with that, and it's just you feel like sending them an apology every single time.
It's so funny you mentioned that too. There's an AI in the battle pass named Lumu,
Hmm.
who occasionally, if you hit like a sniper headshot or a skewer, she'll say condolence postcards sent to enemy's family. like,
Yeah.
like like you hit somebody, and every single time that like if I cap someone with the skewer, I mean, and I'm sure Bernie behind me can attest this. You'll hear that as it goes off, and then somewhere in my apartment you'll hear me go like every single time. It just feels nasty to
I
use,
see the
and I
head
love it.
shaking. I see the head shaking in the background
Yeah.
there. Like, oh no, not again. Yeah, but no, it's
It
just
just
I think they've done
it just
such a
makes
good
you
job.
evil laugh. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
any gun that makes you just giggle a little bit is like it's a good gun. But yeah, I mean, I guess like we've touched on it a lot, but like, how are you? How excited are you now for the future of Halo in general?
It's looking bright, man.
Hmm.
It's cool to see my timeline everywhere on social, all discussing Halo in some fashion. I had to leave the Halo subreddit on Reddit because all they do is cry about the battle pass, and I was sick of it.
I mean,
Um,
that's Reddit for you, but
yeah, no, it's they're dramatic about it over there.
mhm.
Um, but no, I go on Twitter and stuff, and it's just like I don't think I can get more than 3 or 4 posts without seeing somebody have some kind of clip or talk about, like, a Halo weapon or something. It's really cool to see it kind of back in front of the general populace again. Like, it is, like, pop culture right now once more, and I think that kind of contributes to that overall feeling of it kinda reminding the older heads like myself of Halo 2 and Halo 3 when it was just kind of in the forefront of like, the gaming collective's brains, and I think that's one, just kind of a like we mentioned earlier, it's like not a lot of other shooter offerings out there right now.
Yeah,
Battlefield and Call of Duty were a little underwhelming. Um, I assume I didn't play Call of Duty. Fuck Activision. Um,
agreed.
but I think it's also just a testament to how well designed, like despite the battle pass, which is weird, and I think that this is probably why people are so upset
Hmm.
about the battle pass because everything else in Infinite is damn near perfect.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just it feels and looks good to play, and you get these really unique experiences, especially when you roll into big team battle with 11 of your friends, and you guys are all just making memories together like that. I mean, it's a really really unique thing, and I think it's looking really really good. For on this end, it's so fun to see so many people involved in Halo again,
hmm,
and just kind of doing their thing and enjoying it, and it's such a well made and fun game. Um, they've made lots of really really cool design choices that it's a hot topic right now. Halo needs a BR to survive, and I'm like, clearly it doesn't. I
I posted this online that after a couple of weeks with Infinite's multiplayer, I've not
mm,
seen a single person mention a battle royale mode. I've not seen it
whi-
anywhere, and it's like,
which is cool, and the thing is, it's still probably coming,
yeah,
um, which is fine. But it's like I wanted the game to be good first, and I think they've really done that. There's also this cool thing where the maps have all the weapon spawns are in these they're like weapon racks.
hmm,
Essentially, you find them on the walls, or like the power weapons kind of float. Um, when you play quick play, like the what weapons appear in what spots change.
yeah,
And it can be it's random from game to game, and I think that kind of captures that battle royale feeling a little bit. To where, I mean, in a battle royale, you're opening chests, you don't know what's in there. You're getting something a little different, and so being able to play the same map 3 times and have different weapons all 3 times, I think, kind of contributes to that freshness and having to approach things a little differently, because you're going to approach a firefight differently if you have a commando instead of a battle rifle.
yeah.
And so I think they kind of capture that a little bit, at least in quick play. Spawns are set in ranked. Um, and that's also kind of cool to see them messing with that formula just a little bit,
Hmm.
and kind of still hitting those same notes, and it keeps me coming back. Because I can have a completely different experience in the same place like multiple times over and over again, and I think that's brilliant. And I think that's probably why I see a lot of these newer kids kind of sticking around as long as they have. I think that was always the question. I was like, hey, are newer players going to be open to a more old school arena experience? Like arena shooters aren't much of a thing really anymore. I mean, nobody played that Doom multiplayer thing, you know.
No, not a lot of people talking about that one, and I think that's it. What
Yeah.
you're saying there is that uniqueness to Halo in comparison to the other shooters out there. You've got your Call of Duties, your Battlefields, which I feel like you've said missed a step on their launch, and with Halo coming out in beta, obviously, but still working day one. With it being shadow dropped, and everyone being able to download it within like the first half hour, and it just working.
What an absolute clinic on how to
Just
launch AAA games, dude.
gold star marketing right there. It's like, hey
Like,
guys,
not
play it
not not
now.
only could everyone play it, like, when it came like, I remember I downloaded it and immediately got into a match, and I was
Hmm.
like,
What?
"That was weird. I haven't done that ever
No.
in, like, 10 years." But it's like, not only did it work, it was to the point where custom games immediately works. Within custom games, they have this really rad, like, observer mode too, and like, my friends and I were dicking around with that to the point where, friend of the show, Stuff like Mike, out here like running tournaments and stuff using all these new tools that they put in because they released it
Hmm.
and they made sure that it worked when it came out
I love
just
it.
instantly. And it's like I can't remember the last time a game launched as well as Infinite did.
No. Especially not a multiplayer game as well, which are just
Yeah.
rife with issues. Which obviously understandable. Games are hard to make, and
Yes.
developers are magicians, and I want to know their ways. But yeah, no, like I think it's just the work that they've done and make it just work on day one has been fantastic. Obviously, they got that year delay, which was upsetting at the time, but I think it's paid off for 343 and
Oh yeah.
Xbox.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I definitely wonder what the game would have looked like if it didn't hadn't been. You
Hmm.
know. I'm curious as to what it would have been like, but I think that you're. I mean, you can essentially just feel the love and care put into kind of everything in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a well crafted game. I can't get enough of it. Like yeah, like you said, game development is hard,
Hmm.
and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know anything about it either. I know the tiny little bits that I get from kind of sitting on the outside here and talking to and seeing people online and stuff, but I'm not even gonna pretend to. It's like I realize that what I know just barely scratches the surface of what it's actually like, and
Yeah.
and so, but I do think that year definitely helped a lot, and they've made a very very strong product.
Oh, no, fantastic! I cannot wait to see what other campaigns like and
I'm so excited.
what else they bring to the multiplayer. Because again, this is like just day one. Obviously, the Fiesta event has left a few people not too sure about the future. But like for me, it's like it's one event. I'm excited to see what they bring with other events.
Yeah,
Swap, please.
SWAT, please. I'll never play anything else. Maybe that's why they haven't released it yet.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, just don't want to ruin all other games.
they're,
But I
like,
mean,
they're like nobody plays Fiesta anymore. It's real weird.
I don't know why. That's a strange thing. I mean, I guess then the last thing to say is then how would you wrap up like how would you sell Halo to someone now after everything we've talked about, the history, the future, everything? What would be your message to anyone thinking about trying Halo or has tried it in the past and is wondering whether they should come back, or just in general? How would you describe your love of Halo to anyone willing to listen?
So here's the thing: if you wanted to get into Halo, now's the perfect time. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to pay for Xbox Live if you have it on console,
Hmm.
which is beautiful. So it's like you have absolutely nothing to lose by getting into it. And if you come to me, oh, RumblePack, I haven't played it for years though. There's weird nerds like you who never stopped playing it, and like that's gonna suck. And I'm like, hey, there's this thing that Halo Infinite has called the Academy. It'll teach you how certain guns work. It'll teach you how movements are. It's even got a library of terms that old nerds like myself use all the time. So you can even learn the language of Halo players. You have bot matches, so you don't even have to play against other people. You can figure out how everything works at your own pace. It's the most accessible Halo to ever come out, And if you've ever just wanted to jump into a big party of your friends and just have a good time, I don't think there's another game quite like Halo that'll do it for you, because you don't have to be the top fragger to enjoy it. You can be calling out shots and or running objectives, capturing flags, driving warthogs, like all these things. There's so many ways to play Halo that there's not one proper answer, and I guarantee if you try it, you'll find something you enjoy.
Yeah. Right, on that note, thank you for joining me. Where can people find you on the internet?
Absolutely. You can find me streaming on twitch.tv/RumblePack92, 2 to 3 times a week. I'm also very loud and shout a lot on twitter.com/RumblePack92. And I'm the creator and co-host of a podcast show called The Shared Screens, which you can find us over on YouTube. We recently rebranded, and our URL is still youtube.com/Waypoint Podcast. They have not let us change that yet. So please go over to the Shared Screens podcast and check us out. We have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different shows. Again, there's a little something for everybody. We got Star Wars, we got Disney parks, we got Marvel, we got everything over there. Video games, whatever you want. We probably talk about it at some point.
Coldplay. That's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
All I'm saying. No, thank you so much for
Maybe don't
joining me,
watch that
dude.
one.
No, yeah, it's fine. Well, no, thank you again for joining me, my dude. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk all things Halo. Guys, thank you for watching. All the links will be down below. Make sure to check out the episodes before as well. And we've got some good things coming up in the future. But hit that like button, hit subscribe button, and until next time, goodbye.